Controversy over saluting the American flag is igniting tension around the country right now.
When one student right here in the Capital Region saw there was no flag before a big game this weekend, he decided to take action.
News 10 ABC's Lindsay Nielsen has the story now from Troy.
Members of the Mechanicville football team say they noticed there was no flag here at Catholic High during the national anthem. Somebody mentioned looking at this flag across the street, but one player took matters into his own hands.
All the stuff that's happening now with the flag and stuff, so I didn't know if it was like that or where it was.
Mechanicville High School football player and proud Red Raider Daniel Hayner explaining his confusion Friday night when his team noticed there was no American flag present during the national anthem at Catholic High. Recently, San Francisco 49ers quarterback Colin Kaepernick did not stand for the national anthem in protest. But Catholic High says they just finished work to their press box and forgot to replace the flag. Hayner says his team always carries a flag with them, so he took action.
I went over to stood on the end of our line. He was like, no, stand in the middle of the field, so I went out in the middle of the field and stood there.
This photo posted of the act that touched hundreds who liked and shared it was made by a player's parent, who Hayner says is a veteran.
Why is the flag so important?
People die to protect their country, and for the flag, people disrespecting it all the time needs respect, and for the people who serve the country and respect it.
The Mechanicville High School athletic director says he's proud of Hayner.
Yeah, it was just a spontaneous action from a boy from a small town that just had basically a notion that when he comes from a community like this and the things that we try to instill upon him, that there's family, there's a community in our nation, in our country that really means a lot to him.
University of Michigan students can now choose their own identity, but it's already causing controversy. The university announcing a new campus-wide policy this week that allows students to select their own designated personal pronoun. It's part of a move to foster an environment of inclusiveness for transgender students. Students can log on to the Wolverine Access website, hit the Gender Identity tab. They can then choose a pre-selected pronoun or enter their own. One student who chose to be called Your Majesty says there are flaws in the policy.
The pronouns that they suggested aren't even pronouns. There is a professor here that says she will punish students who have their pronouns such as His Majesty, and really that's unfair. There should be equal treatment. We are really happy that we are spreading the absurdity of this policy and really making sure that we restore the university to not only reality but to the pursuit of truth.
Stovall says he will get rid of his title once the policy is removed. For now, the pronouns will appear on class rosters this fall, and professors will address students by their personally designated pronoun.
Alabama Chief Justice Roy Moore has been suspended without pay for the remainder of his term. Moore was found guilty on 6 charges of failing to comply with judicial ethics. In January, Moore sent an order to state probate judges telling them not to issue same-sex marriage licenses. But the U.S. Supreme Court had already legalized same-sex marriage at the time, and a federal order deemed Alabama's ban on same-sex marriage unconstitutional. Moore says he wasn't trying to tell the probate judges to defy the Supreme Court, just that there were conflicts between state and federal court orders. Moore was removed from the bench during a previous term for defying a federal court order to remove a 10 Commandments monument from the state judicial building.
The 603 bathrooms in California will become more inclusive than ever under a newly approved state law.
So first let me get to gender neutral bathrooms. They're going to be more available throughout the state because Governor Brown did sign the bill which would require all state buildings like right here in downtown as well as private businesses to make sure that the single stall toilets they have are designated as gender neutral. Now this would be more inclusive and provide equality for the transgender community, according to the governor. Now, these single occupant restrooms and this new law would take effect March 1st next year. Opponents of the measure, though, say it should be up to private businesses to decide their own bathroom policies, and it could be uncomfortable for women if they accidentally see a man in the restroom or vice versa. Now, this policy is in place at UC campuses, on Santa Barbara's campuses. This is what students had to say.
I really think that bathroom can be used by different genders and people of different ages.
I think it's great. I think it's great that it opens doors for there's no fear of being who you are.
It just has a toilet in the floor like you would use at home. When I walked in the bathroom, I was like, I knew exactly how to use the bathrooms.
The San Andreas Fault earthquake may not only be a plot line for a film soon enough. Since September 26th, there has been a spike in earthquake activity near Bombay Beach, California. However, researchers believe these typically non-threatening earthquakes undersea can now trigger the San Andreas fault line. The San Andreas earthquake is predicted to be a magnitude 7 or higher. Earthquakes that shook the Salton Sea earlier in the week have increased the likelihood of a large quake hitting Southern California. The California Office of Emergency Services issued an earthquake advisory for those in Ventura, San Diego, San Bernardino, Riverside, Orange, Los Angeles, Kern, and Imperial counties. The advisory said that there was a higher chance of a major earthquake until October 4th. Beginning Monday, over 140 seismic events have been recorded near Bombay Beach along the Salton Sea. They ranged from magnitude 1.4 to 4.3, according to U.S. Geological Survey seismologists.
A new study finds that unusually warm Pacific Ocean temperatures helped cause a massive bloom of toxic algae last year that closed lucrative fisheries from California to British Columbia and disrupted marine life from seabirds to sea lions. Scientists linked a large patch of warm ocean water nicknamed the Blob to the vast ribbon of toxic algae that flourished in 2015 and produced record-breaking levels of a neurotoxin that's harmful to people, fish, and marine life. The outbreak of the toxin, domoic acid, the largest ever recorded on the West Coast, closed the razor clam sessions in Washington and Oregon and delayed lucrative Dungeness crab fisheries along the coast. High levels were also detected in many stranded marine animals.
Cases of a rare polio-like illness have shot up in recent months, and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is taking notice. The CDC recorded 32 cases of acute flaccid myelitis across 17 states in the first half of this year. The illness has been most often observed in children. It can cause limb weakness, loss of muscle tone, and in extreme cases, respiratory failure. For comparison, the CDC only recorded 21 cases of AFM through all of last year. 2 cases of AFM were recorded in July 2015. In July 2016, that number jumped to 12. Of course, this year still pales in comparison to the last 6 months of 2014, which saw 120 confirmed AFM cases. That's when the CDC first started paying attention to the disease. The exact cause of AFM is still unknown, but researchers noted the 2014 surge in cases coincided with the national enterovirus outbreak. Since not much is known about the condition, the CDC doesn't have a specific treatment to recommend, but it does recommend children practice basic hygiene and stay up to date on their vaccines in order to avoid diseases associated with AFM.
There were several clusters that became very swollen and itchy around my waist and behind my knees. In the crease on the backs of my legs.
Officials still don't know what's causing the violent skin reaction that you see in these photos. But in the past 2 weeks, at least 40 students and staff members at Lake Forest Elementary School reported mysterious bug bites and skin rashes, some more severe than others. And now, Saddleback Valley Unified School District officials say they've received 5 new reports of similar symptoms from other schools in the district, but they haven't disclosed which ones.
Kids are still coming home this week with bites all over their back.
Jennifer Dublin found a new bite on her daughter after the campus was treated with pesticides over the weekend. Officials say they plan to spray again.
I'm very concerned. I'm thinking about keeping my daughter out for the rest of the week at least.
Members of the district held a meeting Wednesday to address concerns. Many parents upset over a lack of transparency and answers.
Almost 2 weeks into it, they do not have an answer. That's unacceptable. And at the same time, children are still coming to school. Maybe they should have shut down the school.
The Orange County Mosquito and Vector Control District is assisting. Experts set traps around campus but still can't pinpoint the culprit.
It is a little disconcerting that nobody can figure out what it is.
A month after devastating floods ravaged the northeast section of North Korea, aid agencies are now warning that many survivors are homeless and at risk of disease as the winter season approaches. The International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies warned this week that incoming snowfall in October could be disastrous for unprepared flood survivors. The agency added in a statement, "People have lost their coal supplies and are burning bits of wood in makeshift stoves to keep warm. They need proper roofs over their head, fuel, and warm clothes. The risk of a secondary disaster is very real. The floods left over 70,000 people homeless, killed hundreds, and have left a total of 140,000 people in desperate need of assistance.
On Friday, Tropical Storm Matthew turned into a major hurricane. It threatens Jamaica, Cuba, Haiti and the Bahamas as it starts slow movement across the Caribbean. The storm developed into a Category 4 rating with maximum sustained winds of 140 miles per hour. Director of the National Hurricane Center, Rick Knabb, said many land areas are at least threatened by the system. CNN Weather reported that it is still uncertain whether Matthew will hit Florida, where the models currently show it possibly scraping by the state.
I'm very pleased to announce that tomorrow, October 1st, 2016, the special drawing right basket will become effective, the new basket, because as of tomorrow, the renminbi will be considered by the international community as a freely usable international currency and will join the basket of the special drawing rights, together with the US dollar, the euro, the yen, and the British pound.
The IMF chief said the inclusion of the renminbi in the SDR basket will further diversify the currency and will render the basket more representative of global currencies and global economy. It will bring about more robust international monetary and financial system, which in turn will be good for the stability and growth of China.
It's now a question of survival for many inhabitants in Venezuela's capital. Oil prices have surged, the economy has crashed, and the rule of law has collapsed, leaving them hopeless and without protection. In this video, regular citizens are looting a supermarket. Food riots that have become a common sight in Caracas. Many Venezuelans are now eating fewer than 3 meals per day. People just can't afford to buy groceries anymore. The population is furious. They say the state can no longer protect them, so some have decided to take the law into their own hands.
It's another guy they caught trying to steal.
This amateur footage shows a crowd standing over an alleged robber. He's lying on the ground, bleeding from his head. Dozens of people are surrounding him idle, watching him in agony without lifting a finger. In the end, this man was burnt alive and eventually died from his injuries. His name was Roberto Fuentes Bernal, a 42-year-old cook.
Over there next to the street lamp, someone was beaten to death by a mob. This time it was horrible. Some of our neighbors caught a man who had tried to steal something. They were kicking him in the jaw. I got in their way, not to protect him, but just to make sure they wouldn't kill him. I got hit too, and the guy, well, he died here.
The district of Los Grises now has its own militia. Its members say they don't lynch people, but admit using force to arrest robbers.
I'm going to tell you the truth. If someone steals, doesn't harm anyone, then we stop him. He gives the phone back and we call the police and everything goes smoothly. But if he steals and warns someone, we know what's going to happen. The police are going to arrest him, give him a little tap on the back and let him go. So that guy, yes, he deserves it. We'll beat him.
Police in Brazil search for hundreds of missing prisoners after a jailbreak near Sao Paulo. At least 500 escaped after violence broke out at Jardinopolis Open Prison on Thursday. At least 200 remain at large. State officials say at least half were recaptured in nearby fields within hours of the break. Jardinopolis is around 160 kilometers northwest of Sao Paulo, Brazil's second city. Officials say the inmates had set fire to several cells in one wing of the facility during a routine morning call. Scores of prisoners knocked down a 4-meter-high mesh security fence in the chaos that ensued. The prison housed over 1,800 inmates, according to the local newspaper. It was only built to house 1,000. State authorities declined to comment on reported overcrowding at the facility. Prison uprisings and escapes are frequent in Brazil, which has long been criticized by human rights organizations for its prison conditions.
Philippines President Rodrigo Duterte is, of course, known for his controversial statements. Now he's got another comment to add to that list of controversial statements. He says he is comparing his fight against drug dealers and addicts to Hitler's massacre of 6 million Jews in World War II. So far, thousands of people have been killed in his anti-drug campaign.
Hitler massacred
3 million Jews. Now, there is 3 million, there's a 3 million drug addicts. There are. I'd be happy to slaughter them. At least if Germany had Hitler, the Philippines would have, but you know, my victims, I would like to be all criminals.
The summit of South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation, or SAARC, scheduled to take place in Pakistan's capital of Islamabad in November, has been indefinitely postponed, according to the Pakistani government, due to rising tension between arch rivals India and Pakistan.
India has evacuated more than 10,000 villagers living near the border with Pakistan amid concerns that there could be a military escalation after its special forces launched a cross-border operation against suspected militants. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government ordered federal and state security forces to upgrade surveillance along the frontier in Jammu and Kashmir state, part of the 3,300-kilometer or 2,100 miles border between the nuclear-armed neighbors.
Before this funeral began, Oren, an image that I think the eyes of the world, or those certainly who will be seeking peace, would have been gratified by, a handshake between the Palestinian leader and the Prime Minister of Israel.
Undoubtedly an image that would have made President Shimon Peres smile as well, something he worked so hard to achieve. I don't know that there's too much optimism that will suddenly reignite the peace process, but Peres believed in small gestures, in talking, in communicating with one another, even in the smallest ways, to begin some kind of process. Peres always hoped, and he always had optimism, that even small gestures like that could lead to big results. So even that small handshake between Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas would have made Peres smile a bit. Now, Abbas and Peres will be forever linked by the Oslo Accord signed in 1993.
Even in the face of terrorist attacks, even after repeated disappointments at the negotiation table, he insisted that as human beings, Palestinians must be seen as equal in dignity to Jews and must therefore be equal in self-determination. Because of his sense of justice, his analysis of Israel's security, his understanding of Israel's meaning, he believed that the Zionist idea would be best protected when Palestinians too had a state of their own.